Karma here with your July Astrology cheat codes. If you are here, you recognize that we are astrologically influenced by the planets and stars. And with that understanding of how the energy influences us, we can better navigate life's obstacles. So welcome to the club, and let's take an overall look at what happens in July. All right, so in July, we have several planets going into retrograde. We have Neptune, Saturn going into retrograde in the realm of Aries and will retrograde back to Pisces. We have Mercury going into retrograde in the realm of Leo. We have Venus transitioning into both Cancer and Gemini. We have a Capricorn full moon, and we have a Leo new moon. And additionally, Uranus crosses into Gemini. So there's a lot happening in this month, especially with this retrograde energy, because many of these things are aspecting back to Neptune and Saturn. So there's an emphasis here on lessons, okay? And when Saturn hits retrograde, it can become like a pretty ugly energy. Saturn retrograde energy can sometimes be a little funky, okay? Because Saturn is the planet of karma. Saturn is also the planet of lessons, right? So as it goes into retrograde, it makes you retrospective of the lessons that you need to learn. And sometimes that can be kind of hard. That's a hard energy, okay? That's a hard energy to navigate. So, Saturn is going to be in retrograde for a minute. All right. So this is just the beginning, but it will cross back into Pisces, so it won't be as active in that Aries energy, but nonetheless, still lessons on lessons on lessons on lessons, okay? Lessons on lessons. All right, so I'm not going to go into deep analysis of each individual transit. I will give you the energy of the transit as it is transitioning into whatever is happening. However, I will create separate videos for all of the things that are happening in July so that we can get a more deep dive look at what it is everyone is supposed to be working on. But this will just be a summary of what's going on in July. So let's talk about the signs. If you are looking at this from the perspective of your rising sign, okay, this will be most accurate for your rising sign. This is because it encompasses your horizon of your life, okay? Your rising sign, your ascendant sign, the horizon of your life. This encompasses everything, okay? If you're looking at this from your sun perspective, your sun sign, this will be in relation to your ego, your attention, your focus, okay? If you are looking at this from your moon sign, this will be in relation to your emotions, your instincts, and your intuition. Okay, so with that, let's jump into the individual signs. So Aries, we're going to sum it up real quick, just the hot topic of it all. July is going to be a busy month for everyone, okay? So there is going to be retrogrades happening in your first and your fifth house. Your first house of Aries, because you're an Aries rising, which holds Neptune and Saturn, they will be going into retrograde. And then your fifth house of Leo, where Mercury resides, Mercury will also be going into retrograde in Leo. Uranus will cross into your third house of Gemini, so there's some changes here around your mentality. There are also some larger themes at play, okay, because we have that first house, which is sextile to your 11th house, where Pluto is sitting. Then we have aspects, trine aspects, sextile aspects back to that first house as well. So there is a heavy emphasis here on lessons and things happening behind the scenes with that Neptune energy, or secrets or lessons around your self-sabotage, right? And as Uranus crosses into Gemini, that creates a sextile back to that first house house. And then as the new moon happens in the first degrees of Leo, it then creates trine energy back to that first house. And at that point, Uranus and Neptune will be in retrograde. Okay, so there's an emphasis here around lessons, things happening behind the scenes, things that might trigger your ego or change your perspective, a change of thinking, right? And this may be in the realm of your thought process, your first house, which is yourself, your ego, your pride, your focus, then your fifth house, which is your self-expression. Right, so there are themes in July around that energy. So let's go into detail. The Taurus, overall, July is going to be focusing on energies around your second, your 12th, and your fourth house. Okay, so there's an emphasis here around your ways of self-sabotage, okay, the hidden, the secrets, the mystery, your self-destructive behaviors, your desires, your fantasies. There's energy here around the things that you value. Okay, so this is your possessions, your self-worth, right? Value yourself as well. This is your appetite for both sex and food. This is your lending and borrowing and your material desires. And then your fourth house of home. Okay, so that is where you have your internal security. That is where your mother or nurturing parent resides. That's where your roots in your past. So there's heavy emphasis here on concentrations around your ability to be reflective of how maybe your upbringing or your childhood, your inner child impacts how it is you move as it relates to attaining value, right? This is like your security, what it is you find valuable, and the comfort you feel within yourself, okay? So there's heavy energy around that because Venus is going into your second house of Gemini, okay? Because we have the triple R's of retrograde, which is reflection, restructure, and repair. Okay, and we have 3 planets going into retrograde. Pluto is already in retrograde in Aquarius. We have Neptune and Saturn going into retrograde in your 12th house. We also have Mercury going into retrograde in your 4th house. And then we also have Uranus crossing into Gemini in your 2nd house, okay? And there's a lot of activity happening in this 4th house of Leo, okay? We got a new moon in there. We have Venus crossing into that house. We have Mercury crossing into that house and then going into retrograde in that house as well. So there's emphasis here around your internal security and the value you place on things. So let's go ahead and jump into the dates, okay? On the 4th of July, Venus enters Gemini, which is around your flexibility of mind within your material values, okay? Now, Venus in Gemini is sextile to Neptune and Saturn in your 12th house of Aries, okay, in the realm of Aries. So within this house, this is like an emphasis on Neptune rules the 12th house, right? Neptune rules Pisces, which rules the 12th house. So Neptune is in its home base, right? So Neptune in retrograde, again, the energy is reflection, restructure, repair. There's an emphasis here on, again, your internal self, your subconscious mind, how it is that you act within, self-sabotage, or you're going for your fantasies or your desires. This could be your self-destruction. This is mystery, right? Saturn is also there as well. So this, again, speaks to that sextile energy between the 2nd house, speaks to an emphasis on you evaluating how you attain value. With Venus in the 2nd house, right, of Gemini, there's an emphasis here on the things that you create, the peace that you feel maybe around material things, or, what makes you feel at peace. And again, there's also emphasis on that 4th house as well, as we start to have transits into the beginning degrees in that 4th house, right? So there is an emphasis on what it is you choose to feel, what it is you choose as worthy, Let's say that. What it is you choose as worthy and how that ties into, you know, your illusion, your delusion, your subconscious, okay? Same day, July 4th, Neptune goes into retrograde in that 12th house. So again, retrograde represents reflection, restructure, and repair. Okay, it turns the energy inwards, and we start to see energy that will help us to understand our internal selves better. And the 12th house is already an extremely internal house, right? So there's emphasis here. It could be the reverse. There are things that pop up on the outside of you that trigger you into a more introspective energy as to how your subconscious plays a part in how you move within the material world, okay? On July 7th, Uranus enters Gemini. Okay, so Uranus, well then it's been in a sextile to Neptune and Saturn in that 12th house. Okay, so it's still there. There's an emphasis here on, again, a change of your perspective or your change of your mind, flexible thinking, something here popping up within energy around you having some sort of original thought around your material value, what it is that you value on the material plane. Then we have a Capricorn full moon on July 10th. Okay, so the new moon was on January 11th. And again, I'm going to do a video for all of these things individually so we can go a little more deeper into the energy. But there are so many things happening in July. I just want to give an overall synopsis. Okay, we have a Capricorn full moon in the 9th house, right? So the moon around your ambitions, your goals, your diligence, and how you attain those things. This is emotions around that. And the new moon was in January of 2025, and that would have happened in your 2nd house. So again, there's a lot of energy in the 2nd house about how it is that we assess value. Okay, this is more along those lines, and this energy would be to kind of close a cycle that was happening in January of 2025. So this would have been January 11th sometime. And in this moment, we have the new moon opposing Jupiter in the 3rd house. So there's an emphasis here on you needing to pull on new skills as it relates to your discipline or your reliability. Okay, on July 13th, Saturn pops into retrograde in Aries in that 12th house. So these are lessons. Saturn is the teacher. Saturn is about structure. Saturn is about karma, the efforts you put out and the results you get in. And again, retrograde with the 3 R's, reflection, restructure, repair, right? There's an emphasis here on lessons coming around. So now both Saturn and Neptune are in retrograde in that 12th house. And there's emphasis here around lessons of your subconscious, right? And how that plays a part in your material world. Now, Saturn and Neptune in retrograde are still sextile to Pluto, which is also in retrograde in that 10th house. All right, so that is your house of Aquarius. So this is, you know, your changes, your flexibility. Overall, that is where you are having an overall change within your life, is your ambitions and your goals, what it is that you want to attain out of life. With Pluto and Aquarius in your 10th house, there's an overall change here in these lessons within this retrograde, and honestly within all of the energy that we are encountering as the days go by, is to have that restructure of your energy in the 10th house. Okay, a transition, restructure of some sort in your 10th house of ambitions. On July 18th, Mercury goes into retrograde. Okay, so Mercury is going to be in the 4th house of Leo, and it's going to go into retrograde. It's going to be in a sextile to Venus in your 2nd house. So again, this is the energy around, you know, the flexibility of mind that you have as it relates to what it is that you value or what it is that you find worth in. This is sextile energy. So there's an emphasis here on opportunities popping up in this retrograde, Mercury retrograde, for you to kind of change your perspective on that. So these are things that pop up into your life to help you understand better, learn from lessons of the past, and help you understand, reflect on, restructure, and or repair your own specific energy. This could be financial related, this could be sex related, or this could be self, right? Like your self-worth, the value of yourself, or it could be all three, all wrapped up in one. Okay, so these retrogrades, July is a heavy retrograde month, so it's heavy emphasis around learning lessons and restructuring ourselves for the better. On July 22nd, the sun enters Leo in that fourth house. So the sun is going to be crossing by Jupiter. Jupiter is also in that fourth house. So there's development of, again, your internal security, your self-worth. And this could be related to your roots, your upbringing, you discovering things from your past. This is family, but again, overall, there's an emphasis here of like your sense of security. Okay, so as the sun enters Leo, there's emphasis and exposure of things as it relates to your sense of security and what it is you feel gives you the energy of home. And the sun will be sextile to Uranus. So there's an emphasis here on change. Right? There's opportunities for change. On July 24th, we have a new moon in Leo in that same house. So then you guys seeing the theme here around your sense of security, your family, your home, right? So now the new moon is in the first degrees of Leo, and so is Uranus in the first degrees of Gemini. Then you have Saturn and Neptune in the first degrees of Aries, right? So this is the 4-12 energy that I was referring to. As that new moon happens in the first degrees of Leo, we have sextile energy to that second house of Gemini where Uranus is sitting, and then we have trine energy to that 12th house where Neptune and Saturn is sitting. And remember, that 12th house is sextile to your 10th house where Pluto is sitting. So there is like boom, 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 like triggers everywhere. And again, you're going to find yourself like, what in the world is going on? Again, the themes around this energy are about reflection on your self-worth, the abundance that you feel within yourself, also at home, what it is that you value, your upbringing, your past, and how that plays a part in how you attain your value system. Okay, and there's emphasis here with this Gemini energy of you know, being reflective of that energy and maybe changing your perspective as it relates to what it is that you are doing. Then on July 31st, Venus enters Cancer. So for, you know, most of July, from the 4th all the way to the 31st, Venus is in Gemini. So these are things about your relationship, beauty, art, abundance, harmony, and your flexibility of mind around that energy. And that happens in your second house of value, right? Now Venus is transitioning to that third house that is ruled by Gemini, but this is the third house of Cancer, right? And Cancer rules the 4th house, right? So there is heavy emphasis on your change in perspective around what it is that you value, around why you value that. So if you find these themes popping up in your life that kind of have you feeling triggered, or, you know, has you holding on to your money real tight, or, you know, you might be stingy, or you might be giving your money away too much, right? There's an emphasis here on how your shadow or your subconscious plays a part in your value. Okay, and your sense of security. So we're going to see themes of that popping up over and over and over and over again through the month of July. So as Venus enters Cancer, it creates a square to that 12th house where, again, Saturn, the teacher, Neptune, the subconscious, is in retrograde. Reflection, restructure, repair, square energy with that Aries energy. This is Cancer, water, Aries, fire, don't mesh at all. Now you're starting to see themes around struggles in how it is that you are acting as it relates to your self-conscious, and like really pouring into yourself. Okay, this, you know, July is gonna be a tough month for everybody. All right. So overall, again, if you find yourself, Taurus, with these extenuating circumstances and things just happening over and over and over again, hitting you in the same way, that's because you're meant to see a bigger picture. Okay, so pay attention with this retrograde energy because it's going to point some things out that we need to work on. Okay, Taurus, I hope this reaches you well.